Right now, the threat of more job cuts to federal agencies has many employees on edge. We're going to hear from an expert on how to navigate through these career pivots. Also, the cost of eggs keeps rising fast. We'll preview our investigation into what's behind the scrambled up sticker shock, and we'll take you out to the final frontier and hear from about the latest mission to explore the universe and our own sun. This is the take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines and look at why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite in experts to come on and share their take and get insights on today's headlines. Let's start with the latest on the Trump administration calling for massive cuts across federal agencies. This was the one topic that came up during the president's first cabinet meeting of his second administration. Yesterday, the Office of Management and Budget and the Office of Personnel Management issued a memo to agency leaders with guidance on how to conduct their reductions in force and reorganization plans. During the cabinet meeting, Trump advisor Elon Musk attempted to clarify the moves of his Department of Government Efficiency.
We wish to keep everyone who is doing a job that is essential and doing that job well. But if the job is not essential or they're not doing the job well, they obviously should not be on the public payroll.
I'd like to add, wait a minute. I'd like to add that those million people that haven't responded, though, Elon, they are on the bubble. You know, I wouldn't say that we're thrilled about it. You know, they haven't responded.
Roughly 80% of federal workers live outside of Washington, D.C. That includes a sizable chunk right here in Metro Atlanta who may find themselves out of work. Here now to navigate through these career pivots is the Atlanta-based jobs expert who operates Career Nomad, a coaching agency based in Gwinnett County, Ms. Patrice Lindo. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Chelsea, for having me. I'm looking forward to talking about this with you.
All right, so let's get started. What's your thoughts when you hear about all these potential cuts?
Well, Chelsea, what we are witnessing is one of the greatest workforce shakeups in government in our lifetime. So a lot of times, you know, if we think about not just the government agencies, but also adjacent industries, we will need to create our strategies and create it now.
All right, so now when it comes to certain jobs, there's still some people left in limbo. They don't know if they'll be out of work. How do you navigate that?
Well, the best way to navigate it is to take a strategic approach now. Start by reassessing your skills, start by identifying your transferable expertise and tailoring your personal brand and having those conversations to get into these roles before the layoffs happen, because it sounds like it's impending.
Do you see any hurdles trying to navigate coming out of the public sector to the private sector?
Well, you know what? I would rather reframe them as opportunities to bridge what you know and who you know to get your next opportunity. Because we all know the job market is oversaturated already, and online applications just get lost, right? Especially in times like these. So instead of solely relying on that, tap into your connections. Who is it that you're networking with? How have you shown up? Do they know what you're able to do? Talk about your transferable skills that you have. Talk about the impact that you have, because a lot of times positioning yourself in this way as an industry expert / leader / someone that comes with a lot of specialized experience, it helps you to land your next role a lot better than just applying online.
We talk about the bright side because we see this mainly as a negative thing. Is there a bright side to this? What would be the bright side to this?
I would say it's a chance to really shift your mindset, right? From job loss to career opportunity. If you think of this as not just updating your resume and not just applying everywhere, it's a way for you to really realign yourself with the work that means something to you. Because in times like this, it's a place for us to really just stand out and for us to really take a new spin when it comes to career. Maybe there's time for things to shake up and we have to do something with it, right? We can't just sit by and let it happen. So it's a way to kind of keep your iron sharp.
Have you had the opportunity to talk to any federal employees about what's going on?
Some. I do have some colleagues that have had this experience, and as they're navigating it, you know, initially, right, it's almost like the 7 stages of grief, right? And so as they're working through that, what I help them to remember is what impact they had, what are their key transferable skills, and what can they offer as they're going out back into the job market? Because the reality is a lot of them are not in the position nor timing, for example, for retirement. And they weren't necessarily planning for this to happen. It's literally just happening overnight. So we're working through that on a case by case basis, but definitely, optimizing the experience that they have and trying to reframe their experience.
Gotcha. I would imagine that a lot of people are doing this online, searching for jobs. Is there anywhere else they can go to find a new career?
Online is definitely one place, but I would say getting out into industry meetups, going to places like here in Atlanta, at like places like the Gathering Spot. There's a lot to be said about the events that are happening, especially here around town. There are a lot of opportunities with conferences, both online and in person, but go into those industry conferences and make the connections. And it's in those connections that they can build not only their network, but gain the referrals that they need for the opportunities that exist. Because the thought that they exist only on LinkedIn would be a false one to have. A lot of these opportunities lie in the conversations that they have and letting people know what they're able and capable of doing.
How does it look for people in our area? Is the job market here pretty good?
The job market in Atlanta, I'm going to say it's been who you know for quite a while. So I think it's just more of that. So the important thing is to become visible, make sure people know who your personal brand is and the work that you've been doing and the work that you can add value to. So it's not, I would say, optimal, but it's definitely very hopeful. It's all in the connections.
All right, Atlanta-based jobs expert, Patricia Lindo, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Chelsea. Have a great day.
All right, do the same. All right, let's take a look at our forecast for today because there are changes. We have a cold front that's going to be moving through the area. It's going to add more clouds to our forecast for today. So not the prettiest days like we had the last couple, and a little bit cooler, right? Yesterday we got up to near 80 degrees. Today only around 70, and behind that front temperatures will cool down as well. Only 65 for your high on Friday. We get the sunshine back. And we'll hold on to it as we head through the weekend. Now, it will be up and down, 70 for the high temperature on Saturday. Another front moving through will knock that temperature back down into the 50s for highs by the time we get to Sunday. So Saturday will be the warmer of the two weekend days. We'll hold on to the 50s as we start the work week next week. But our best chance for rain doesn't come until the middle of the week. 50% chance for rain, possibly a thunderstorm or two as temperatures climb back to around 70 degrees. Don't go anywhere. We're back right after this. All right, we got some sad breaking news from the entertainment world. Actor Gene Hackman died. Sheriff's officers in New Mexico say the two-time Oscar winner, along with his wife and dog, were found dead in their home. Officials say the cause of death has not been determined as of yet, but foul play is not suspected. Hackman was one of the industry's most respected and honored performers. His dozen of films includes roles in The French Connection and Unforgiving, each of them earning him an Academy Award. And his breakout performance in Bonnie and Clyde. Hackman was 95 years old. As we stated at the top of the show, Elon Musk joined President Trump's cabinet meeting yesterday and spoke in length about his efforts to slash the federal workforce. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr, who has been covering politics for years now. And Alice, right away, we want to get your take on this cabinet meeting yesterday.
Yeah, Chesley, it was interesting visually to see Elon Musk joining this cabinet meeting. In many ways, he was center stage, though he wasn't physically because he didn't have a seat at the table because, of course, he's not actually a member of the cabinet. But President Trump turned to him first and asked him to talk about his efforts to slash federal spending. He talked at length about that. And then there was kind of a funny moment toward the end of his what Elon Musk was saying when President Trump kind of cut him off and said, let's let the cabinet speak for a minute. And then he asked the cabinet members if any of them were unhappy with what Elon Musk has been doing and said, if you are, we'll throw him out. I wasn't entirely clear, and I haven't seen clarity of whether he meant we'll throw Elon Musk out or we'll throw cabinet members out, because there has been a little bit of pushback specifically over that email that was sent to federal workers asking them to explain what they did on the job last week. A few agency heads had told their employees initially not to respond, specifically those that work with classified information, and those agency heads, those cabinet members, were sitting at that very table. So it was kind of a funny moment of, in some ways the elephant in the room, Elon Musk physically in the room with the cabinet members and seeing how that all played out.
Yeah, a laughable moment right there. We're going to stick with Doge here. Some fresh comments out from one of our Congress members here, Marjorie Taylor Greene, this week during a House subcommittee meeting. She said that federal workers do not deserve their jobs. And yesterday, she continued to target money for U.S. aid. How much of an impact does she have on Capitol Hill?
Yeah, I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene is certainly one of the more outspoken representatives on Capitol Hill. And she, of course, represents, a viewpoint that a lot of Republicans, a lot of Americans share in pointing out that, there's this desire to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse and to make sure that the government is more streamlined. But she did get kind of pushback from a representative, Veronica Escobar, Democrat from Texas, who pointed out what is important to remember, that federal workers are not just here in Washington, they're all over the country. And so Veronica Escobar was criticizing Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene for casting aside the careers of her own constituents, noting that there are more than 6,000 federal workers who work in Marjorie Taylor Greene and live in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district. And again, trying to draw attention to the fact that this is not just a Washington issue, that it affects Americans all over the country.
Absolutely. All right, looking ahead, President Trump is meeting with another foreign leader at the White House today. What do we expect the focus will be as he meets with the UK Prime Minister?
Right, so he's meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer at the White House today. And we've heard from Starmer's office that he wants to talk about economic growth and ties between the U.S. and the UK. He wants to talk about collaboration on AI and on tech. But certainly the backstop to all of this, the backdrop, is the efforts that European leaders have been undertaking to try to get the U.S. and the Trump administration on side with Europe, with Ukraine. What we've seen is the Trump administration engaging so far with Russia in efforts to try to negotiate an end to Russia's war on Ukraine. And there's been a lot of concern about where Ukraine is going to stand in this. Earlier this week, French President Emmanuel Macron was here in Washington as well. And so they're efforting to kind of strengthen some of those really long-standing, of course, alliances that have been shaken a little bit in this reworking of foreign policy under the Trump administration, but really driving home that even if European leaders take on more of the work of securing Ukraine, promising long-term security guarantees, that there needs to be an American backstop to make sure that Russia is not emboldened down the line, if there is a peace deal, to just go ahead and invade again in the not too distant future.
All right, Alice Barr, always appreciate your insight. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thanks.
All right, other stories that we're tracking today. Atlanta Police Department is blaming local rapper Lil Baby, his music video, for the deaths of two 13-year-olds. Police say the video was filmed in a rival gang territory. A $50,000 reward is being offered for information. So far, 7 people have been arrested. Cobb County officials are working to return 57 cremated remains of people to their families. The Norman Medford Peden Funeral Home and Crematory in Marietta burned down early last year. Authorities have just identified the remains that were removed from the building in November of last year. Family members have until May 30th to come forward if they believe the remains could belong to one of their loved ones. All right, now to a talker tied to your grocery bill. Yep, consumer investigative reporter Liza Lucas joins us here on The Take. Welcome back to the show, first of all, Liza.
Good morning, Chesley. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. The bird flu, is it really having that much of an impact on these egg prices?
It really is. It really is. We have been following this. We've been price tracking at the grocery store, watching the data, because we know that the changes that people have seen and experienced with egg prices over the past few months, they are really hitting home for a lot of families. And in some cases, even our own team here, we know shoppers are showing up to stores and finding no eggs at all.
I'm one of them. You go to the store, there's nothing there. So break it down for us. Is the bird flu really the blame for this?
It really is. When we talk about bird flu, we're talking about the main driver. These outbreaks are directly hitting egg production and ultimately the supply chain, but it is also not the only factor. In fact, we had a chance to sit down with one of the experts right in our own backyard, Wendy White. She's a food industry expert at Georgia Tech, and she said on top of bird flu, we've had winter weather that has really hit the roads and caused a bottleneck, higher chicken feed prices, that of course impacts the industry, and then the holidays when everybody is baking and the demand is already high. Now all of that together, she says, really has created the perfect storm when we talk about increased prices. That's what we've seen play out the past few months especially. And then the location of the bird flu outbreaks. This is really interesting. It has also played a role as well in terms of why we've seen the price increase with eggs, but not chicken. Take a listen.
California's been hit really hard, the Midwest, and we just have a lot of egg-laying hen production out in those areas. The second factor is that we also have the age of the birds that are raised primarily for meat, usually are only on the farm for about 7 weeks, where egg-laying hens can be on the farm for a year, even 2 years. Just that time on the farm and the exposure opportunity naturally lends itself to eggs being a little bit more susceptible than meat.
All right, so we're talking about supply and demand here. Any sense on how consumers can and businesses are dealing with this?
Well, this has been a tricky story because every day there is new information, new headlines coming out. Of course, the recent announcement that Denny's is going to add that surcharge. Waffle House, we know, was a huge story here. That has been making headlines. But then White also tells me she's been working with a lot of bakeries. Key ingredient when we talk about eggs, right? And some of those businesses, she says, are really having a hard time. Then we want to narrow down to the everyday shoppers like you and me and much of our audience, and we're reminded eggs are a protein-rich food, an easy way to stretch a budget. And we talked to some of those shoppers, including Kelsey and Alvin. They offer some perspective. Take a listen.
Eggs are staple, just like milk and bread. Most households consume them, and so it has a big impact on people's day-to-day lives when their staples, jump in price like that.
I usually like grits, eggs, and bacon, but I've been having grits and bacon. That's it, no eggs. So I'm waiting till the prices go down because I ain't. It's just, and then the economy how it's going. It's just I can't afford to buy eggs that high.
So he said something real key right there, Liza. What's your perspective on the price going up or maybe lasting longer?
Well, I don't know how people are going to take this news, but we're still in a very much wait and see mode. You see those signs at the grocery store. I snapped one there right at Trader Joe's where you're only allowed to buy a certain amount. Those restrictions are an effort to stabilize demand. Of course, there was actually a USDA report just last week that said sometimes people see those restrictions and they buy every time they go to the grocery store instead of what they need, and that just fuels the demand. Now, at the same time, we've also hit a record high in prices for a basic dozen eggs, but then the latest USDA forecast shows that we could see prices increase more than 40% this year. So we may not be done with this yet. The question really, when I talk to the experts, is that it's going to come down to some seasonal factors that drive supply and demand. And then the key here, whether we continue to see bird flu be a problem in herd production.
All right, so next time you come on the show, Liza, we need you to come up with some alternatives to eggs.
Exactly.
Maybe powder
I'm not a cook.
or something.
We'll bring in an expert for that one too.
Okay, all right, we'll bring in an expert with you. Yeah, powder eggs or something like this. I think I mentioned earlier maybe ducks, geese. I don't know. Something.
We've been talking about that. Yeah, some of us here.
All right. Thanks a lot, Liza Lucas.
Thanks,
really appreciate that report. All right, you can watch the full story you can watch your full report on our 11Alive newscast, which streams live at 11 right here on 11Alive Plus. We got more stories coming right after the break. Stay with us. NASA's latest mission to the stars is designed to unlock some of the cosmic secrets that remain a mystery. Here now is NASA's astrobiologist, space scientist Sean Goldman, and welcome to the show, Sean. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, this seems to be an amazing mission, and you have 2 separate launches. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we've got 2 missions that are launching together, Punch and SphereX. Really excited about both of them. I'm also excited that we're able to stack them together on the same rocket. It means I can talk to you about heliophysics and nerd out about that, and also nerd out about astrophysics too. But it's also great because it's a good bargain for the American taxpayer. We're buying one rocket and getting both missions launched into a polar orbit all at one time.
Tell me about the mission. What are we looking for this time?
So these are 2 big picture missions, literally. So Punch is going to get a big picture of the sun and the stuff around the sun that eventually makes its way to Earth and impacts us in terms of what we call space weather. And that impacts everything from auroras to communication satellites to our GPS. And so we really want to understand that better. The SphereX mission is a bigger picture of the entire universe, literally. It's going to get a map of the night sky in colors that are redder than the reddest colors our eyes can see. And by doing that, it's going to tell us about the history and origins of the universe in which we live.
What will we do with this data once we get it?
Sorry, say again?
What will we do with this data once we get it, once we get the information back? What do you hope to?
We get the data down, and then we release it to the world. And then the people really focused here in the United States will leverage that data to do all kinds of cool stuff with it. For Punch, it's going to be understanding the physics of that solar wind and how it spreads out from the sun and then eventually impacts us here at home. For SphereX, we're going to be doing what I call cosmological forensics. There's going to be astronomers that take pictures of galaxies or the pictures of galaxies and understand things, not just what happened to those galaxies themselves, but imagine a detective in a crime show that shows up and has to find out what happened before. They'll see all of those galaxies and understand not just what they're like, but they'll be able to kind of reverse time back to literally fractions of a second after the Big Bang and understand the physics back then.
Wow. We're understanding now there's a bit of a delay. What's up with that now?
So we're launching no earlier than tomorrow night, but stay tuned because these things always can change due to weather or other things. So you can follow along at nasa.gov/punch or nasa.gov/SphereX for the latest. And if things change, we'll have blog posts up about that.
Is there anything else we can gain by this mission other than what we're seeking to gain? Is there other things that we can probably find out?
Yeah, and one of the coolest things about the stuff that we do is sometimes we can't predict the science that's going to come out of it.
Right.
For SphereX in particular, we're getting such a massive data set. We're going to be looking at every star and galaxy, and some cases the region between stars. The data we bring down when we release it, we have ideas for what we're going to do. But the brilliant scientists all over this country are then going to use that data for things I can't even predict that right now what they're going to do with it, because they're going to find out some genius way to play with the data and the data from our other space telescopes, like the James Webb Space Telescope or the upcoming Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, and stitch those data together to answer questions. I can't even tell you what they are today, because they'll make them up in the next few years.
Yeah. We don't have a live audience here at The Take, but if we did, they would want me to ask you, are we alone in the universe? Tell us, Sean.
So I think we are not. What is even more cool to me as a scientist is, that's a question we've been asking for millennia. And this is the first time in this generation where we're going to build spacecraft to answer that question explicitly and bring it into the realm of the scientific method. So we're going to be building not just we're launching SphereX this weekend, but then we're also going to follow that up with the Habitable Worlds Observatory, which is a telescope that will specifically look for signs of life on planets around other stars. Wow. And that's something that I'm really excited for the future.
Well, we are excited as well. Is there anything that could delay the launch anymore, or are you dead set on where we're going?
Right now it's still Friday's the earliest, but I would say stay tuned today, and we might have updates as the day goes along.
All right. Sean, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate that. We can't wait to see what's out there.
I can't wait to see it either.
All right. All right, back with my final take. You're watching The Take, and we're back right after this. All right, before we go, here's my final take, and maybe he's just like us. This week, photos of famous rapper Kendrick Lamar have surfaced of him sitting in class at UCLA over a 5-day period back in 2022. The TikTok video has gone viral, of course, and over 4 million views. The pics are him just sitting in class. He's on his phone scrolling just like everybody else. What else is he supposed to do in class, right? There's no information about what classes he took. Maybe he was taking, how to be a battle rapper, or what to do with beefs with Drake. Something like that. I don't know. He's just like us. They're all just like us, sort of, with more money. That's all. Thanks for joining us today, folks. As we say goodbye, here is your moment of Zen.